you're watching in bed at the White House, you might want to stay up because we are definitely going to be talking about you, girl. Okay? You know, President Donald Trump did find time between bombings yesterday to post what the New York Post called apocalyptic footage of San Francisco under Gavin Newsom. The Ayatollah is pulling out all the stops lately.
Why did you use such vulgar language in that Truth Social post?
Only to make my point. I think you've heard it before.
Mr. President, why did you say praise be to Allah?
Have you spoken to the families of the airmen that were saved?
I'm going to be doing it right now.
Mr. President, what do you say to Americans who are not a fan of the war?
They're foolish because the war is about one thing. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Had we not broken the Barack Hussein Obama agreement, you know what I'm talking about, the Iran nuclear deal. This is years ago, my first term. You would have had a total, Israel would have been gone, extinguished. Israel would have been wiped off the face of the earth, and the entire Middle East would have been, at a minimum, in big trouble. A rescue that's very historic. It'll go down in the books. Late Thursday night, an American F-15 fighter jet went down deep inside enemy territory in Iran while participating in Operation Epic Fury, where we're doing unbelievably well, well at a level that nobody's ever seen before. The entire country can be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night.
He claimed that it is too soon to know the full scope and duration of this conflict. Now, on Sunday, he said it could last 4 to 5 weeks. Yesterday, he said it could be more than 4 to 5 weeks. Today, he said it's too soon to know, and tomorrow we'll be shooting for Christmas, I guess. However long it takes until everyone stops talking about how many times his name is in the Trump Epstein files. That's how, and one of the concerns that has been raised is that dropping all these bombs could deplete our weapons reserves and put us in a tough spot if another conflict were to arise somewhere else, like if Greenland decides to launch a preemptive attack. There are reports that the reason we've been moving so fast with this is that they want to finish the job before we run out of munitions. But don't worry, President Donald J. Rumsfeld says we are locked and loaded for the long haul. He says,
you've said Iranians would be mad if you stopped these attacks, but why would they want you to blow up their infrastructure, to cut off their power? Wouldn't that be punishing Iranians for the actions of the regime?
They would be willing to, and it's suffering, they would be willing to suffer that in order to have freedom. The Iranians have, and we've had numerous intercepts. Please keep bombing. Bombs that are dropping near their homes. Please keep bombing. Do it. And these are people that are living where the bombs are exploding. And when we leave and we're not hitting those areas, they're saying, please come back, come back, come back. These are the people. I don't know what they do. All I can tell you is they want freedom. They have lived in a world that you know nothing about. It's a violent, horrible world where if you protest, you are shot.
that's exactly what we wanted to hear. Just like the war his stomach is fighting with his pants. It will go on. Now, listen, I'm not an expert in this, but I'm pretty sure our military doesn't have unlimited weapons. It's a stockpile. It's not the buffet at the Golden Corral. You know, last night I mentioned that the only good thing I could say about Trump, before Saturday anyway, was that he didn't start any wars. And I'm not the only one who felt this way. We found this op-ed from the Wall Street Journal in 2023, written by a senator who said he was endorsing Trump because, quote, I know he won't recklessly send Americans to fight overseas. And that senator, you know who that is? He's not a senator anymore. Now he's the vice president, J.D. Vance. That's the same fellow who called Trump America's Hitler. Good thing for J.D., his boss does not read, so he should be okay. This is all very tricky for Trump because his followers in the MAGAverse most definitely did not vote for this war. This is the opposite of what Trump promised he would do.
Mr. President, how would it not be a war crime to strike Iran's bridges and power plants?
Because they killed 45,000 people in the last month, more than that. I think it could be as much as 60. They kill protesters, they're animals. And we have to stop them, and we can't let them have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. They want a nuclear weapon. They've been trying for a long time. I stopped them with the Obama horrible Iran nuclear deal. I stopped him in a lot of different ways. We got rid of Soleimani, the evil genius, who was an evil genius. We got rid of him. And then we stopped him with the B-2 bombers not so long ago. And if we didn't do it, Israel and the Middle East would have been extinguished by now.
This is a war crime. And then there was even more damning statement from another prominent member of the Trump cult from back in 2016, and that member is Pete Hegseth himself.
And I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief.
Wow, the same guy who's threatening to court-martial Senator Mark Kelly for making a video saying troops don't have to follow unlawful orders is on video saying troops don't have to follow unlawful orders, and there should be consequences for war crimes. Why can't that guy be Secretary of Defense? He clearly knows what he's talking about. Maybe when they fire Pete Hegseth 2025, they'll replace him with Pete Hegseth 2016.
Well, look, you get backing off the issue on legality of certain kinds of strikes, and will we go after Carg Island, which would be a huge mistake. I think what crystallized my thinking on the danger the country is in was the unhinged tweet on Truth Social from the president, blasphemous on Easter Day. It sounded like sundowner syndrome on an elderly man. Had that statement been made by a lieutenant colonel in an email to his boss in the Pentagon, literally, we would have let him out of the building and sent him over to Walter Reed. So we got a problem. I don't see how we get through 2 more years with the commander-in-chief. There's only 2 people that can give legal orders to the armed forces: the President of the United States and the Secretary of Defense. And both of them are shaky figures. So we got a real problem. Now, how we're going to get out of this dilemma with Iran is beyond me. Tactically, the air-sea campaign has been the most successful in military history. Simply phenomenal. We actually do have air superiority dominance throughout this giant country of 90 million people. But strategically, we're in a box right now, and President Trump is desperate. It's obvious. He's flailing. The Iranians are not bluffing. And so we're in a considerable difficulty. We're not going to get their nuke program under control with air attacks. We're not going to change a regime with air attacks. We're not going to open the Strait of Hormuz with air attacks. So the country's leadership doesn't know what it's doing. Where's the denunciation of this in Congress?
Yeah, and Rick, of course, Congress silent, conveniently on recess. But let's talk. That deadline looms. The president pushed it today. It's tomorrow night. And people around him have said that he's serious. Like he's considering this. He may give the go-ahead for this attack. There are some last-ditch efforts at negotiations right now. You, of course, have plenty of experience with these sorts of talks. Do you see any sort of off-ramp here?
I don't know. And, part of what he's doing, and General McCaffrey knows this phrase, is sort of escalation dominance in terms of rhetoric. It's like, I can say hell more times than you can. I can be blasphemous more times than you can. And obviously he has backed down many times. But part of this rhetoric, this ugly, violent rhetoric, is this image of the ugly American. That's exactly what people see when they see someone who's not democratic, who's not going to Congress, who's making these really ugly threats. It's really nasty. I hope he doesn't go through with it, because basically he's threatening, civilian crimes and crimes against international law. That only makes that image of the ugly American even more venal.
And one that would potentially create a wrecked, failed state that would be a breeding ground for terrorism and that much more anger towards the United States. So, John McCaffrey.
Let me be very clear about what is happening right now, because the framing we keep receiving, the deadline, the negotiation, the theatrical back and forth, is obscuring something genuinely alarming about how this administration is conducting what is, by any honest measure, a war. Iran has effectively strangled the Strait of Hormuz, the choke point through which roughly 20% of the world's oil passes, by targeting ships in retaliation for U.S.-Israeli strikes. Those are the actual stakes on the table, not a social media spat, not a trade dispute, a live, burning war with catastrophic global energy consequences being managed by a man who announces his military doctrine through profanity-laced posts on a platform he personally owns. Think carefully about what that means. The commander-in-chief of the most powerful military in human history declared that Tuesday would be, and I am not paraphrasing here, Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one. He announced potential strikes on civilian infrastructure the way someone announces a themed birthday party. And the International Committee of the Red Cross, an organization that has witnessed the absolute worst of human conflict across 2 centuries, felt compelled to issue a formal warning that deliberate threats against essential civilian infrastructure must not become the new norm in warfare. When the Red Cross has to remind an American president not to threaten war crimes on social media, we have traveled very far from anything resembling normal governance. Trump held a press conference today. He dismissed a 45-day ceasefire proposal, painstakingly assembled by regional mediators from Egypt, Pakistan, and Turkey, as simply not good enough, while in the same breath declaring, "The only one who is going to set a ceasefire is me." That single sentence contains everything you need to understand about this administration's foreign policy philosophy. It is not strategy. It is ego management dressed in the costume of strategy, and the entire world is being forced to live inside that costume with him. Iran, for its part, has stated plainly that negotiation is incompatible with ultimatums and threats of war crimes. And here's the uncomfortable truth. They are not entirely wrong. You cannot simultaneously bomb a sovereign nation, threaten to destroy its electrical grid and bridges, and then present yourself to the world as a good-faith negotiating partner. Genuine diplomacy requires, at absolute minimum, a pretense of mutual respect. What Trump is practicing is not diplomacy. It is coercion backed by an air force, and the distinction matters enormously. The escalation risks are not theoretical. Iranian advisors have now openly threatened to signal Houthi forces to also target the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, through which an estimated 10% of global trade flows between Asia and Europe. We are watching a situation where Trump's maximalist posturing, his serial deadline extensions, his Truth Social ultimatums issued between Easter egg hunts, risk triggering a cascading closure of 2 of the world's most critical maritime corridors simultaneously. The economic consequences of that scenario are almost impossible to fully calculate. Polls consistently show that most Americans do not support U.S. military action in Iran. Trump's response to those Americans, delivered at the White House Easter egg roll, was that they are foolish. His justification for the entire conflict? Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. That argument might carry considerably more moral weight had this administration not spent years methodically dismantling every diplomatic framework specifically designed to constrain Iran's nuclear ambitions, long before the first bomb was dropped. What we are witnessing in real time is the inevitable, logical endpoint of an administration that has always confused noise with power, chaos with leverage, and cruelty with strength. The world is paying for that confusion now, at the gas pump, in skyrocketing shipping costs, and most devastatingly, in human lives. and the man responsible is holding press conferences about it between Easter festivities, still apparently uncertain, in his own words, whether he is winding down a war or escalating one. That is not leadership. That is a crisis wearing a suit.